Hey everyone, today I want to give you guys my initial impressions on this new water purification system I've been playing around with, and this is the SteriPEN Classic, which is an ultraviolet type water purifier as opposed to a pump or a chemical treatment. Right off the bat, just full disclosure, this SteriPEN Classic was provided to me at no cost by the folks at Sierra Trading Post, so thank you guys for that. It was provided for the purposes of this video review. I'm under no obligation to leave a positive or negative review, just to do a product review of this product. So one other thing, please look in the description. I believe that there will be a link from Sierra Trading Post to a special offer down there. So check that out as well. So for anybody not aware, the way that this works is it has a ultraviolet bulb here, and you insert it into the water, and it irradiates your water with ultraviolet light for a certain amount of time, and that kills the bacteria, viruses, and protozoa. And then you have this is just a protective cap to protect the bulb, and it, as you can see, it seals on quite securely. But first, before I go any more in depth, I'm going to cut some footage of me using this out in the wilderness, actually, on a recent hike. Okay, so I filled up some of that delicious crystal clear mountain stream water. You just grab the SteriPEN and remove the cap. I'm going to give this a little bit of a swirling action to get a little bit of current flowing in there. Pop the lid. Green light says we're good, and lights up, and then we can just kind of stir it around. Don't mind the squeaking, that's just my dog Jack. He's not very patient. So we just leave, and then we can just kind of stir it, or it'll balance there real nice too. And for anybody who's concerned, plastic, metal, glass, you know, the typical things that water bottles are made out of, will absorb ultraviolet radiation. So I don't have to sit here and worry about this giving me an unexpected sunburn. But this will take 90 seconds to do the liter. I'll cut to when it's just about to finish up, since otherwise we'll just be sitting here watching it do its thing. Okay, that indicates that the 1 liter treatment was successful. Just kind of flick the water off of the bulb, put the protector on so we don't damage it. Then the only other thing you want to concern with is the water up here around the end where I filled it up. That didn't get treated, so you can either wipe that dry with like your t-shirt or something, or another thing you can do is just barely get the cap on there and invert it and kind of just flush it out a little bit with some of that sanitized water. Now you're good to go. Oh man, that's delicious. It's just like drinking it out of the stream, except, it's completely safe as far as all the bugs and nasties in it. But yeah, has a nice, subtle, woodsy taste to it. And it's just awesome to be able to drink the water out of the stream like that when we're so close to the Continental Divide. And, just have it unadulterated. No chemical taste, don't have to deal with the filter. That worked out great. Okay, so there you guys saw the demonstration of it. Pretty simple and easy to use. So we'll just dive into the rest of the review here. We'll start out kind of doing pros and cons that I'm aware of so far. The things I like, it kills viruses, which is something that competing water treatment options, some do, some don't, but this is a plus that it does. As you saw in the demonstration I did, I was using it in cold temperatures And that's one of the things I actually really like about it is it will, other than maybe the battery life, it has no problems working in the cold, and you don't have to worry about it. Things like pumps or anything that uses kind of any type of filter technology, typically you cannot, if you let them freeze, it will either damage it or it will at least damage the filter to the point where it will not filter to the same porosity that it did before. So that's a benefit of the SteriPEN. I like that. One of the things that this may be a pro, may be a con. To me, it's a pro that it doesn't change the taste of your water at all. Obviously, I'm spoiled because I live and camp and hike near the Continental Divide, so I get pristine, clean snowmelt water that tastes fantastic. And I like that this treatment, doesn't add any plastic tastes. It doesn't add any chemical tastes. That's really nice. Obviously, if I had not so ideal water sources, that might be a con. Obviously, some filters have charcoal technology and whatnot that'll remove that taste if you don't like it. But for me, it's a plus. I think it's good for either solo or like small groups. It'll treat a liter of water in 90 seconds or a half liter of water in, I think, like 48 seconds or something like that. So, doing it by yourself is a snap. Doing it for you and a partner is real quick. Even in a small group, 4 people, 5 people, I think it could still work fine. It could at least compete with the time that a pump would take. It's low maintenance. Pretty much as long as the batteries are charged, you're good to go. It's not like a pump where you have to kind of clean it out. That's nice. And weight-wise, I will have to put the weight in the description because I don't know it off the top of my head. But it's competitive, I'd say. It's lighter than a pump, but it's not as light as something like the Sawyer filters or a chemical treatment option. So it's kind of mid-range on that. Now we'll move into some of the cons. Some of the things that it kind of lacks is that it's actually only really usable for clear or mostly clear water. And SteriPEN actually states that in the directions to not use it with clear water. And you can use it with like cloudy water in an emergency. They say you can like treat it twice, but from the way I read their instructions, it's not reliable treatment if your water is cloudy. I mean, cloudy is subjective, but there you go. If your water sources are cloudy, I would probably opt for a different solution than the SteriPEN. It does also rely on batteries, which I would say is a con, because if the batteries die, then it doesn't work. You're hosed. It does have an indicator light here, and we'll get into that later, but it will give you an indication if the battery starts to get lower. And I guess you could carry some spare batteries to alleviate that. Another restriction on it is the water bottle opening. You can see the way from my demo, you stick this in your water and you stir it around. One of my favorite water bottles to use is like old soda bottles, and they're actually so small that you can get the bulb in there, but it stops about here. And to me, it's like, I don't know if the bulb is getting down in the water enough to treat it effectively. So that's a bit of a, you can alleviate that. Like in my video, I just used a Gatorade bottle instead of like a Coke bottle, but something to be aware of. I believe the directions say 2 centimeter wide bottle opening is the limit. Another con is that it's not really a system that would work well with water bladders. You could you could treat water in a single bottle and then pour it into your bladder to fill it up, but that's a bit cumbersome. People who use hydration bladders would probably be better off with a chemical treatment or some kind of filter or an inline filter or something like that. I'm also going to list a con as it's delicate. I haven't had a problem with its durability, and this cover is very effective. It snaps on very securely, but if something were to go wrong, I mean, this is a glass bulb, so it would only take one wrong move or one drop to probably break it. And then one other thing to be aware of, and I have it listed for a con, is that although it's effective against viruses, it is not effective against eggs or like multicellular organisms. So if you're in a situation where, let's say tapeworms or something like that, a filter or a chemical treatment will treat for those, and the SteriPEN actually will not. It's not really a problem in most of North America, but one of the things I think is actually really good for this is international travel. And you know, then you might be in a situation where you do have to worry about worms and whatnot. So just be aware that it's not effective for that. So one other note I want to say before we kind of wrap things up is that if you guys go for one of these, I highly recommend you read the directions. And it seems kind of odd to state that in a review video, but there actually is quite a bit to getting this thing to operate properly that you'd want to be aware of. So I suggest you study up on the directions. And just to give you an idea, this is the table that shows you all the different, you know, indications for that indicator light. Like if you treated it successfully, if there was a fault, if it you know, the battery is low, if the battery is completely dead, you know, if you have less than 100 treatments remaining, if the lamp fails or whatever. So, you know, it's one of those things that you want to at least brush up on. I don't think you really need to carry the directions with you when you're out using it, but, you know, just give them a good read. So, final thoughts on this. I think that this situation, like this as a water treatment option, you know, geared towards either international travelers or backpackers or whatnot, I think it's ideal for international travel. It would be great, you know, to have the ability to, you know, you wouldn't have to buy as much bottled water. And if you had any suspicions about your tap water or anything, you know, you can just zap it 90 seconds and you're all good. Maybe even less if it's less than a liter. And then obviously people like in my situation where you have pristine water sources, you know, hiking in the mountains, where you have streams and snow melt and things like that, where you're getting really nice, clear water sources as is, and then you can just give it a little zap, and then you don't have to worry about giardia or anything like that. The last type of person who I would recommend this to would be what I'm going to call like a taste purist. If you're somebody who, you know, can't stand the taste of the chemicals in your water, or maybe the filters add a plasticky taste, you know, this here is going to leave the water tasting exactly as it is. And, you know, like I said in my demonstration, it's like, it's just as good as if you scooped your bottle up and just drank it right out of the stream, except it's killed all the microorganisms in it. So, or at least all the single-celled stuff, the stuff that's going to make you sick. So if that, you know, if it sounds like a solution, if that seems like, hey, you know, that sounds like me, I'd give it a go. Obviously, this one was provided to me at no cost, so I think a fair question is, do I think it's worth the money? And if you meet kind of the requirements I just kind of said, if you do a lot of international travel or you have really nice water sources, I think it's worth picking up. I would do it, at least at this point. I obviously have some future testing to do. This is just an initial impressions video. One of the things I'm really keen to see is the battery life on it. If the battery life turns out to be less than ideal, I would probably change that recommendation, just because buying new batteries, you know, however often, it's like getting lithium batteries for this is about $10. It runs on 4 AAA batteries. So, you know, the cost of that are going to add up. So anyway, as it stands now, I'm happy with it. I'll be using it more in the future, but I just wanted to get that out there. Once again, look in the description for a special offer from Sierra Trading Post, and thank you, Sierra Trading Post, for providing this to me for the purposes of doing the review. I appreciate it. Let me know if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.